guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to be sharing another lecture from my latest course on how to digitally paint light and color. Now, if you've been painting for a while, you know that light and color is one of the hardest topics to master, but one of the most important, right? A lot of times we see art that we really love and admire and it looks amazing, and part of the reason is because the light and color looks so good, and when we try and replicate it, our colors end up coming out muddy, or our lighting ends up coming out gray and splotchy, right? So this course is all about how to help you fix that. This lecture in particular is all about subsurface scattering. Now, if you don't know what subsurface scattering is, that's when light shines through an object and it bounces around inside the object and then comes out the other side, and it makes the object look almost like it's glowing. So for example, if you hold a gummy bear up to the light, that gummy bear will kind of look like it's glowing. Or if you shine a flashlight behind your ear or up to the back of your hand and it looks red, light glows through, that's subsurface scattering. And it's an effect that really adds a lot of realism to your paintings. So this lecture from the course goes over that and how to do that. So if this is something you like and you want to know more and really go in depth, then take the course. I'm running a sale for the launch, and you can get the entire course for a steep discount. Okay, normally it's $140 and you can get it for over 85% off if you use the coupon code that's in the description. So be sure to take advantage of that, and I hope you enjoy this video. See you guys in the next one. In this lecture, we're going to talk about subsurface scattering. Now, that's a fancy term to really just describe what happens when light shines through an object that is semi-transparent. So we can see here in this little Buddha statue that when it's backlit, which is when it's a lot more noticeable, that the light is coming through, shining through the back of the statue, and it goes into the statue and bounces around and is diffused by all of the particles inside of that statue, and then some of that light escapes out the other side in what looks like a little bit of a glow. So if we look here, you can see, whoops, let's get back our correct brush. If you look, you can see on this side, even though it's in the shadow side, it still looks lit up, and it's not reflected light, because if it was reflected light, then it would just be a darker shade of this orange color, and the shadows would, and the reflected light would be a gray or greenish color like the background. But since this is all red and saturated, we can tell that it means light is actually shining through the object. Same with his face over here, right? So that's subsurface scattering. The same effect also happens with human flesh, or really any flesh if it's thin enough. And when it's backlit especially, the light shines through the flesh and is diffused throughout the blood vessels and the muscle inside of your finger and comes out the other side and makes your finger or your hand look really red. Okay? Adding this effect to skin and other parts of the body really helps to bring another level of realism. It really ties everything in together. It adds a really nice splash of saturation and color to things that are pretty, if it's something that's already desaturated. And if you were to go to a wax museum, they do this on the top layer of skin for all the sculptures, because they know that having the subsurface scattering makes it look more realistic. So they'll use a semi-transparent wax for the top layer so that light can shine through it and make it look like there's blood pumping through the skin. So I'm going to show you guys how we can paint this. So we have our little monkey demon guy back here again, and starting with right on top of my highlights layer, I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to set it to overlay. Okay. So I'm also going to select my fill layer so I make sure that I'm not painting outside my lines. And this overlay layer, we're going to pick a nice dark reddish orange color right about there. I'm going to get my airbrush, and we're just going to brush in the areas where we're going to be coming in with our subsurface scattering. Okay, so we're going to do it on the ears, on both sides. Let me grab my eraser tool and just clean up his eyebrow area now. We don't want any on there. And then I'm also going to show you how to add it to his horns. So we're going to go a little bit more orange for his horns, a little more orange yellow. And we're going to do it especially on the tip, because that's where, I'm going to get a different brush too so I can get a little bit more specific. Especially on the tip, because that's where it's going to be the thinnest, and then a little bit along the edges. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here with my eraser tool. We'll just clean this up as well. Make sure we're not going outside the horn shape. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. A little bit on the edges, and then especially on the tip. Okay? And then I'm going to erase that out in the middle just a little bit. Alright, cool. So that's our first layer. Now that doesn't quite look like anything yet, and that's because we haven't actually added the light behind. This is kind of our base layer of lighting. Okay, so we're going to make a new layer on top of this one, and this one we're going to set to screen, which is under the light in menu, and this color is going to be a really bright, really saturated red. Okay, we really want to pump this up here. It's not all the way in the corner, but it's pretty dang close. Okay, and I'm going to reselect my shape layer to make sure we're not painting outside the lines. I'm going to start on this here. Now, you want to keep in mind, you only want to do this on the thinnest parts, right? So we don't want to do it on this part because this layer is really thick, right? Let's make sure we're on our screen layer. We don't want to do it here because that layer is really thick. We want to do it on the thin parts, like in his ear. So I'm going to focus it right here, and as it fades to thicker parts, it will kind of fade away and not be quite as strong. Okay, so same over here. We'll do it on this part of his ear as it comes down. And afterwards we can go back and adjust any opacity and stuff that we need to, but already you can tell it's starting to really warm it up and make it feel like there's blood flowing through there and like this guy's alive, right? Alright, cool. So let's do the other ear. And you know what, before we go over there, actually I'm going to just add a little bit more over here. Alright, there we go. And then I'm going to take my eraser tool as well and just knock it back a little bit along the edges where it's supposed to be blending into the rest of the ear. Okay, like that. Okay. And that looks a little better. And then the other ear, we're going to do the same thing. Thinking about what parts are going to be the most lit up. Okay. There we go. And if we need to, what we can do, I'm feeling like our layer beneath it, our overlay layer, isn't quite dark enough. So I'm going to select all the ear shapes on my overlay layer, which is beneath the screen layer we just did, this one. Okay, going to select those shapes, and I'm going to darken it a little bit more. Okay. And then on this layer, I'm going to lower the opacity a bit so it's not quite so in your face with it. There we go. And then let's do the same thing on the horns. This time we're going to go with a little bit more of an orange-yellow color. We're going to keep it pretty bright and pretty saturated. And whoops, and we're going to do this just on the very tips. Okay? So the places where light is shining through the most and the edges. Okay? So we go through there, and then we'll have it fade down here. And then I'm going to come back with my eraser tool with a soft brush. First I'll go clean up the edges really quick. Make sure we're not going outside any lines. And then I can come in here from the middle and help fade this up so it's not so overwhelming. Okay, and then let's do the other side. Okay. Grab my eraser tool, clean up those edges, and then clean up the middle. Alright, there we go. And that's how you can create subsurface scattering. If you need to go back and adjust some things, line some things up more, or make them a little bit stronger. Like this area, for example, I think I need to lighten it up just a little bit, maybe pump up the saturation some more. Okay. And it's also, if you really want to sell this, what you're probably going to need to do is have the light line up with this a little bit more. So for example, this guy, he just has kind of like black in the background, but if you really want this to feel real, what you would need to do is get a little bit more of a light source going from behind, so that it felt like there was a reason why this was glowing instead of just kind of being there, right? So if you, I mean, it doesn't even have to be very extreme, just something that's going to help our eyes understand and find it a little bit more believable that there's light behind it and that's why it's glowing, like that. Okay? So super simple effect, and you could do this on a lot of stuff, right? Anything that, like these horns, for example, light's still going to be showing through. The same with teeth, right? Teeth will do this, ears will do this, people's noses will do this, fingers. So just keep this in mind. Basically, if you want to experiment with this, go in a dark room with a flashlight and shine it on different parts of your body and see how much light shines through and how obvious it is, and that'll give you a pretty good idea of where this is going to occur most commonly. So that's it for subsurface scattering, and I'll see you guys in the next lecture.